What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and game journals appear to be in full panic mode by the mere thought that people might know that there is a clique of journalists in the game journalism world that actively keep out a particular group of people. They are deathly afraid of being exposed for not being inclusive, as they like to talk about. But I would say that not only this article, but their reaction to it is as close to an admission of guilt as you're going to get. And it sure would be a shame if you're seeing this on Twitter and you shared it, or you left a like and a comment on it and you shared it out anywhere you use social media, because I think that the reaction is pretty interesting. And I kind of hate that I'm doing this on a Friday, so I hope that people will still see it and share it about. Now, Sophia Narwitz, I've covered her work several times before, and is someone I consider a friend. So, full disclosure. But I will do my best to question things in this article that I think are questionable, and I don't think it's perfect the way it is, but nonetheless. Now, the article is titled, if you're a conservative, you have no chance. Game journalism insiders outs clique that runs industry like private domain. Now, for many of you right now, you're saying, well, duh, all I need to do is look at some of these journals' Twitters, and they're all on the exact same side. Now, I want to be clear that I would prefer there be no political leanings in any video game journalism, period. So the mere existence of conservatives in the video game journalism space, is rare. From what I can see, non-existent, but I wouldn't want them spouting conservative views about video games either, especially on video game journalism websites. If I want politics, I'll go read about politics. Now, an influential figure from a leading game website says that the clique of like-minded media figures are colluding to prevent right-leaning journalists and developers from having a voice in the industry. Quote, if you were openly conservative and tried to apply for any of the mainstream outlets that are on the coasts, I don't think you'd have a chance of hell in getting in, says the senior source, who wishes to remain anonymous for fear of repercussions. Well, again, the anonymous source thing is a slippery thing to deal with. People need to be anonymous for a variety of reasons. I would imagine if they do feel like there'd be repercussions in their field, then I understand why they would be anonymous. So you've got to look at the entire evidence pool a little deeper than just an anonymous source. And I'm going to get to it. I think their reaction proves a lot of it. Quote, there are a lot of us that probably think there's a clique. Well, I know there's a clique, they say. The clique is comprised of journalists from well-known gaming and tech websites, among them Kotaku, Polygon, Vice, Ars Technica, Gaming Daily, GameSpot, Eurogamer, and loads more. People, quote, won't write something or we won't say anything on Twitter or whatever because you spew one wrong opinion and you're asking for trouble, says the source, who has admitted to keeping their own opinions private to avoid sanction. Unless you don't care about potential opportunities within the industry, a lot of people just don't say what they're actually thinking. Politics over integrity. The dominance has directly impacted the integrity of journalism in publications run by the clique members. In one example, which was described to me in detail that I've obscured to protect my source, staff members were discussing coverage of a controversial figure who'd been wrongly punished in a gaming organization. Several members of the site objected, saying that the figure did not deserve fair coverage because they are not a good person. Their crime being openly right-wing. My source continues. They don't want to cover things because they don't like somebody, and that's not how you do journalism. That's blogging. And, well, that's something I entirely agree with. Now, I think I think the correct term is for them urinalists, or, I would think most of them are just simply bloggers or op-ed writers that try to use operating under the guise of journalism. The source also The clique's power says it has insulated itself from criticism, allowing them to get away with many of the offenses that they punish others for. To set examples, Danny O'Dwyer, formerly of GameSpot, used to drop N-bombs on Twitter. Patrick Klepek from Vice has a history of spicy jokes. Laura Kate Dale, formerly of Kotaku, once slandered a comedian only to admit she made the entire event up. Jed Whittaker made an entire video where he laughs about struggle snuggles and also drops N-bombs. Also, while devs such as the team behind Ion Fury are called phobic in hit pieces because of a pun in their game. My source believes that shaming tactics of the clique deploys are not just about hypocritical self-righteousness, but cliques. It's all audience building tactics. Look at how much people talk about controversy articles on social media. They know exactly what they're doing because it works. You sow the dissent, people engage with it, and voila, you've got thousands of viewers. She then goes on to talk about the Alec Hawaka situation, which I'm not going to read this verbatim because I think you should read her entire article. And also, I'm more interested in the reaction necessarily. Now, here's an important, I think, point. Just because there's a lack of something in a workplace doesn't necessarily prove they're actively keeping them out. For example, if a business, and this is something I've often used this point before too, just because a business of 15 employees are all men doesn't mean they have anything against women. Or just because a business is all white people doesn't mean they have anything against black people. It doesn't prove that as much as some social justice journals would like. It doesn't prove anything. Just like this doesn't necessarily prove that there's an active discrimination against people who have an alternative political view. Now, I'm on record, and I mean it, saying I wish I didn't know any of the political leanings of anybody who's covering things under the guise of journalism. Because once you self-identify as a political proponent of one side or the other, your opinions all come into question to me, especially when you're reviewing things and you're saying, well, this is problematic, or this is, the Ion Fury thing was a perfect example how everyone acted so offended because there was an Oil of O'Gay soap, like a 90s Doom level joke, and all these journals were completely offended. Well, I think that they ham that stuff up because they know that the developers don't care about their politics. The article ends with, will rebellion rise up? The existence of a clique probably won't be surprising to those who follow the industry. In 2014, the leaking of an email chain called Journo Pros alerted the public to a behind-the-scenes power structure where the medium's most influential voices were dictating coverage. Jump to present days, and it appears insider communication channels have not just been rebuilt, but made stronger. Behind the scenes, other writers are aware of what's happening, but they're afraid to speak up. Quote, I think you'd be surprised how many of us writers can't stand the clique in this space. Most of us won't say anything because they need the work, They also added, sounds cowardly, but there's definitely a lot of fear in the space that people will get canceled for speaking out against a lot of what's going on. It's not cowardly. It's factual. It's undoubtedly factual. But what's interesting to me is let's look a little of the reaction, right? Sophia's gathered some of it. Here's keep questing all. Generally, good journalism requires more than one source to confirm a story, but hey, what do I know in response to a source, the article itself? Well, I mean, do I really need to go through Kotaku and all these other people who have cited anonymous sources before? I mean, this is just gaslighting. You got this article or this response here. Seems like bad PR to label all conservatives as jerks in response to an article that talks about how the industry is gatekeeping against those with different ideological views, but hey, what do I know? This guy works PR and communications at Epic Games, and he replied, breaking people that don't work. People don't want to work with a-holes oblivious to the fact that they are just insufferable. And this was in response to the article. You see Colin Moriarty in here saying, I've never seen people prove a point quite like the response to your article. It's amazing that this cabal operates in broad daylight, but it is what it is. Media with ever diminishing audiences, PR with ever decreasing power over who says what, when, and how. Keep it up. How about this? You can see Business Legs here, another journo who works at Kotaku, saying, there are a lot of us that probably think there's a clique. Well, that there's a clique, they say. And then they put the classic hand claps, which I'm not going to do. Thinking something is not confirmation of it happening. Really? Coming from Kotaku. Coming from Kotaku. That writes, that literally just wrote an article about Pokemon whitewashing a character who, by the way, from what I could tell, was never black in the first place. But yeah, Slay Queen. You know, it just goes on and on and on. These people all reacted so aggressively. Jason Schreier called it a conspiracy theory, says the guy who's a big proponent of Russia. Here's Brittany Peel from Dallas News, and you have Susan Arndt, who also is a game journo, who works at ContinuePod, mobile game enthusiast. Hey, Brittany, can you name any one or two openly right-leaning individuals writing at any of the mainstream gaming-centric publications? Because here's their response. Just in case any of my followers are curious, I managed to have a really fun, fulfilling freelance career in game journalism, writing for some of my favorite sites without ever knowing a single person in the industry beforehand. There is no gatekeeping clique. Here's Susan Arndt. I ran 2 different websites without ever being in with the cool kids. But what do I know? I mean, yes, there are cliques, but as there are in any smallish industry, but get a grip. It seems like the reaction here, again, it goes on and on and on. People are just like, you're crazy. You're crazy. That would never happen. You're crazy. 3 writers from Kotaku, US Gamer, and Eurogamer, among others, are summing up the entirety of the right sphere as hateful, while they are at the same time saying my article is wrong and that there's no clique barring people jobs due to politics. Here's Liz. Lol, please. There are plenty of conservative and alt-right gaming websites. Really? First of all, I don't know about you, but I don't want to go to a conservative gaming site. And I don't want to go to a progressive or Democrat, whatever the terminology is. I just want to go to a gaming website. And also, isn't this like kind of admitting that Kotaku's is a progressive website? But maybe if you don't think everyone deserves rights, maybe it's a little harder to get work. Again, okay, great. Here's Jeremy Signor. Okay, look, Colin Moriarty. I like how they censor names. I don't understand this. Look at my unsurprised face. So they're trashing Colin Moriarty. And then you have, oh, of course, it's Sophia Narwitz being called on endangering the lives of your so-called peers in the name of Snecky Boy isn't cliquish. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Again, her response, could you please name 1 or 2 openly right-leaning writers at mainstream gaming-centric publications? Nobody does. It seems like, you know, again, the lack of them does not prove the fact that there's an open gatekeeping effort, but it certainly doesn't help. You know, again, more thing here. This is an easy question. Disprove my article. Name 1 or 2 openly right-leaning individuals at either Kotaku, Vice, Polygon, Eurogame, Games Revolution, GameSpot, Giant Bomb, Game Daily, VG247, Rock Paper Shotgun, PC Gamer, PC Games N, US Gamer, or Game Sutra. It's a great point. Name anyone. Name anyone. I'm not going to out the political leanings of my colleagues. Please. No, it wouldn't. That's a trick. If I mentioned a conservative in Australia, does it disprove anything about other countries? It wouldn't. The goalpost wouldn't shift, and that's the trick. A lot of people are dancing around this without actually, you know, answering the question, which to me says a lot. When you have people like Schreier and stuff calling it conspiracy theories and all sorts of stuff like that, you know, no one is fragile to hearing opposing ideas than Jason Schreier. It should be in any capacity whatsoever be a journalist. He doesn't even engage with the mere thought of expanding his mind. I, for one, would like to see games media showing diversity both in terms of gender, sexuality, and ideas. I'm interested in to hear how these companies are promoting ideological diversity. Is there anything showing this? Blocked. 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 I see that you're taking there are no conservatives in game media as well by blocking everybody. Hope the echo chamber serves you well. I mean, that's exactly it. You know, Schreier just calls it conspiracy theory and blocks everybody who dares bring it up. Now, do I think, in my opinion, based on just the reality and the smell test of the industry, that there's gatekeeping here? Of course! Of course! Is their reaction, their over-the-top reaction to this, proof? Probably not in court, but in the court of public opinion, I'd say it doesn't look good for them. Let them continue to panic. You know, fewer and fewer people are going to places like Kotaku and Polygon anyway, and they're coming here to YouTube, or they're looking for independent journalism, and I think that's best. So keep wiggling around, game journos, and pretending like we don't know what you're all exactly about. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.